Let's see here. Now we're on to art chat. Yeah, that video was such a waste of time. I mean, it wasn't a waste of time to respond. We did have a lot of valuable response, but like, that's just the most like stupid segment that I have ever seen producing a video. None of his criticisms were salient. He just throws out like the whole heretic thing and whatever without any sort of actual qualification. It's someone who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. So we're going to react to a couple of these videos. Kind of get a good, I thought I heard an animal for a moment. That was kind of freaking me out. I thought I heard an animal outside. I was like, damn, what is going on, bro? What's his most watched video? He has some really good ones. Gen Z archetype is important. We are not watching the fetish art one. I know you guys saw that on the right. We're not watching that one. Don't worry. I do not need to see big Sonic feet. Okay, I did not need to see Sonic Vor, Sonic Vor Mario XXX. That's not on the cutting board tonight. Let's see here. Hey, Sanctus, what's up, buddy? It's good to see you, man. Oh, we'll slow this down. This doesn't need to be.
There are two types of Zoomers. Those who are preparing for the future, and those who are scared of it. This is why Gen Z is some of the most hardworking people, as well as some of the most broken. But it gets more complicated than that. Google Gen Z trends right now, and you'll find countless marketing websites trying to dissect us, trying to understand us. Barbiecore, Y2...
Oh, also, let me mod Sanctus. He is now a mod in chat. I love that guy.
UK girlies, sustainable fashion, health and fitness. But they don't understand us. They'll never understand us. Why? Because Gen Z is fluid like f***ing water. You don't see Gen Z, you don't observe Gen Z like an animal in the wild. You experience Gen Z. You get in the f***ing goo with Gen Z. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram Reels. That's where it's all happening, man. And that's why you need me. Because I'm going to break down Gen Z, and I'm going to break down the Gen Z archetypes plain and simple style. Listen up, LinkedIn marketing analyst, SEO masters, because I'm about to crack the f***ing code. You see, Gen Z is preparing for war. There are no houses, white picket fences, or sustainable incomes in our future. There is only change. And what Gen Z wants is adaptability, to become hard to kill, so we can face the changes coming our way and not crumble under the pressure. This brings us to our first archetype. Schizo lifter. This guy really wants answers. Like, he knows there's something wrong, but he just hasn't figured out what's wrong yet. All he knows is that if he goes to the gym, his life will probably improve, but his skepticism haunts him, and his yearn for answers is completely detrimental to his social life. He's in the gym 20 hours a week, just thinking, Putin's bad. No, wait, that's what they want you to think. Putin's actually good. Israel's good? No, Israel's bad now. Switched it up on you. That's what they want you to think. I gotta delete my social media. It's a matrix attack. The matrix is after me. Know what I'm capable of. They know what I could do. And now, the schizo lifter is a transitory position. There's three ways out of being a schizo lifter. The first is homelessness, but that's a millennial problem. You don't have to worry about that till you're like in your 30s. The second is religious. Gen Z has grown to love religion, and here's why. You have the pre-boomer generations, GI, silent generation, and they knew why they were religious. They understood the parables in the Bible. They understood why they feared God, and they passed that down onto their boomer children. The boomers don't know why they're religious. They don't really have a grasp on like the depth of it. They just do it because it's what you do. You go to church, you believe in God, that's life. And the boomers trying to pass religion on to Gen X and millennials. What? I'm just supposed to believe in Sky Daddy? The 42-year-old Reddit atheist types alone in his apartment with no kids, or no wife, or no savings, or no hope for the future. And then you have Gen Z. Most of us were raised with zero religious influence. We never went to church. You never were religious the way other generations were religious. As we age into early adulthood and we look at the 30-somethings, the 40-somethings with literally no meaning in their life, we think to ourselves, maybe religion was important. Our issue is that we're just figuring this out and we're really clawing at it. I'm not saying you have to be a Bible thumper to be happy. Gen Z tries on new religions like it's an outfit. Islam, Tradcath, Presbyterian. But remember, I said three ways out of schizo lifter. The third way out is hustler. This person chose money instead of God. And although they'll probably be more successful than you, they'll also definitely be sadder. Capital accumulation is like the default class you start out with when you're born. You were raised to be good at producing and accumulating money. This is a major shift from most of history when you were raised to be useful for society. You were taught a trade or to farm or to occupy a position in society that's needed. Now it's like, well, if I take these classes in high school, I get this degree and I get this post-secondary degree, I can become an SEO analyst for an overvalued tech company and make $190K a year. This is what humans were meant to do. This is what life is all about. I was put on earth to be an SEO analyst. I just figured it out. I finally figured it out, guys. Hey, look, I don't hate money. I love capital accumulation as much as the next guy. That's why you can buy this mug on my website, archad.shop, the I will never kill myself mug, to let people know that you're not going to kill your security at this point. You're black belt on cybersecurity. You know that 40 or 50 companies.
So, I mean, he does dissect that archetype pretty well. You know, there is this kind of like gym stoicism, I notice, where people have embraced this idea of, you know, if you just throw around heavy weights, everything will work out. And there is merit to the idea that, yes, working out does make you feel a lot better. It does manage to make your life not only better from a health standpoint, not just better from how you look, but also, you know, from a mental health thing, and kind of giving you another thing that gives you kind of a not a purpose, but a sort of like intentional goal, an intentional goal that you follow in your life, right? There's merit. There's a bit of merit to it, but here's the thing. The gym is a means to an end, and it's not an end within itself. And a lot of people, and this kind of goes back to the whole gym bro thing, but a lot of people treat the gym like it's an end onto itself. The gym suddenly no longer becomes, it's something, you know, place that you go to kind of better your body, regulate your mind, and get your life in check from a physical and even maybe an emotional well-being standpoint, mental well-being standpoint. It becomes almost like a religion. Like you can find yourself in the gym, like the constant like working yourself to become a better version of yourself becomes a pursuit in of itself. But here's the problem, right? The entire issue with gym stoicism is that it's Sisyphus rolling the boulder up the hill. Because there's no real meaning with just going to the gym. When you just go to the gym and you just keep going to the gym and you just keep working out, yes, you'll get stronger and stronger and stronger. But when you realize that eventually it just kind of tapers out, you reach a point where it's like you're going to be as cut as you will ever be because of your biology. You're going to just have that kind of muscularity because of the way you were born. It almost becomes the same kind of mindset that like transgender people adopt, where it's never enough. So suddenly you go from like doing gym to then like, I need plastic surgery. I need to break my jaw. I need to get like lip filler or injections, or I need to do these crazy diets and these crazy health fads that like will get me just that much closer. And you're doing all this work and all this work and all this work. You have to ask yourself, for what purpose? Why do you want to be the best? What does the end look like for you? And you might offer some platitude about like, it's just all about the struggle, man. It's all about the pursuit. That's great on a bumper sticker, but that doesn't amount to any meaning. Everything in this life has an end. Everything in this life has an end that we are trying to reach. It can be a good it can be a good end, it can be a bad end, but it is an end. And with the gym culture, with gym stoicism, you may very well say, well, the end is looking good and being at my physical peak. That's great. For what purpose? What do you do when you get there? Why do you want to get there? Right? And when you reach that point, when you reach that end, you have to ask yourself, why am I here? Why did I get here? There is nothing eternal about the gym. Don't get me wrong. I see old guys who are very like, buff and built and stuff like that. It can happen. There's 100-year-olds that can still run a marathon like nobody's business, like they're 28. But as you get older, your physical fitness will decline. You won't be able to lift as much as you once did. It's not because you didn't try hard enough. It's just biology. It's just the passage of time. And there will be a cap to how good you can get yourself. Why do you want to be the best? For what purpose? Because just saying that the best is the purpose is not enough. It's not going to satiate your heart. And I see a lot of these young guys, and don't get me wrong, man. I admire their prowess. I admire the fact that they are building themselves up. They're disciplined. That's very good. There's a lot of admirable qualities in that. But when the gym basically becomes your religion, there's no why to it. Stoicism, Awelf said it in chat. Stoicism becomes like a good life practice. Like it becomes like a good way of like handling trauma, handling traumatic experiences, dealing with like the difficulties in life or what have you. That's why a lot of these guys adopt it. They've been burnt by the internet. They've been burnt by girls. They've been burnt by a society that hates them and wants them dead. And so it's easy to adopt a mindset that kind of lets all those things run off your back like water. But the one thing Stoicism is missing is a why. Why should you let these things roll off your back like water? What is the ultimate purpose for your life? Why do you exist? Why do you live? Why do you breathe? Why will you die one day? And Gym Stoicism, because Stoicism itself could never answer this, Gym Stoicism will never answer that question. And so it's an archetype for a very lost man. Don't get me wrong, he's doing great in terms of the physical fitness aspect. He's doing wonderful in terms of taking care of himself, but he is still lost. He hasn't escaped the cave. There's still a veil of darkness over his eyes. And the gym isn't going to help you find that. The gym can do a lot of things. Go to the gym, take care of yourself, eat right and work out. But it's not going to be the thing that allows you to find what you've always been searching.
Have your data and you just don't care. You're like, who am I? What am I going to do? Why am I important? It doesn't matter if they have my data. I have nothing to hide. And you're screwed by encrypting your network. There's
Okay,
no
that's an ad.
guarantee. And says money can't buy you happiness. But Gen Z, for some reason, thinks they're the only exception to this rule. But what if you don't lift? You don't care about money and you're not religious? What happens to you then? That makes you the cope lord. This person is f***ed. Every thought they have, every action they do is to shield themselves from the idea that they're gonna die someday. They love shows, movies, video games. They're really particular about their favorite foods, their favorite music, how people perceive them. They probably call themselves an introvert. This person isn't useless. They definitely have a passable job. From the outside, a cope lord might even appear like a hustler because they have no friends and they're always working. But that's because that's the path of least resistance for them. They'll never take risks, never speak up for themselves, and never truly feel happy. But hey, at least the new Star Wars movie's coming out. The NPC. I hate the NPC meme because it's an ego-bloating us versus them code. The only reason the NPC...
But yeah, I mean, just to comment on that archetype before we get in the NPC, I guess the cope lord's like kind of a funny term to use. I would just say it's someone like... It's Goyam. No, I'm kidding. It's somebody who is really a hedonist. I mean, to use kind of a more poetic term, it's just a hedonist. It's somebody who thinks that rather than engaging with the difficult questions in life, that pleasure is going to give them or soothe them in what they need, right? If I can soothe myself with pleasure, if I can soothe myself with hedonistic delights, I don't have to then pursue truth. I don't have to then ask the difficult questions. I can, basically merely just be and exist, right? And that's no way to live. If you can merely just be and exist, to some extent, you're going to start engaging in gluttony and you're going to start engaging in indulgence. And any vice that you partake in is going to become your religion. It's going to become the thing that you serve. I mean, this is like the guys who spend like thousands of dollars on like real dolls, or, you know, the 30-year-olds that it's like they're going all out for the, you know, Disney trips, and, you know, they treat, you know, going to like Buc-ee's and getting like sugar laden desserts like it's a, like they just visited Mecca, like they just visited the Vatican, like Buc-ee's is their Vatican, right? It's their Mecca. That becomes their religion. Man was made to worship. It's just a question of what he worships. And you can either worship God or you can worship the world. And the hedonist, it's like their world is just these pleasures. But the thing about it is, because these pleasures are so empty and they really can't fulfill what your heart desires, you want more of it. You know, people who like eat themselves to death, or like, you know, just don't take care of themselves, or goon all day, or what have you. It's like what they're trying to find is a satiation in that, to be satiated in that, when that thing will never offer them peace. It'll never offer them stasis. It'll always just be this endless pursuit. And it'll be this, again, to use the Greek tragedy, Sisyphus rolling the boulder up the hill. That's what all of these things are. When you don't have God, you just become Sisyphus. Sisyphus is the perfect analogy, and it'll probably come up with these other archetypes, but Sisyphus is the perfect analogy for the man without God. You try to find God in other things that will never give you God. So, you know, you'll have a completely unhealthy diet, you'll completely mess up your diet, or you'll sleep around with every single girl, or you'll, you know, pursue the bag and try to like make a bunch of businesses and money, or you'll try to, you know, build kind of maybe a political empire. You'll, you know, maybe focus on a hobby, even if it's something that's not necessarily negative, like building a business or focusing on a hobby. Your obsession with it is what becomes unhealthy. And when those people can't have the satisfaction of feeling content with that thing that they're pursuing, they start to blame other people and they start to blame everything around them. You know, it's kind of like those movies you see where there's the like very successful like lawyer or entrepreneur, and he gives some monologue about how he has to win. Winning for him is not a thing that he gets to enjoy as a result of working very hard, getting to enjoy the fruits of his labor. Winning for him is his existence, because without it, he's meaningless. And that's a very sad life. You should have ambition. And it's okay to say that, even that you want to win. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing unholy about that. But if you're willing to do all of that at the cost of your soul, that's when something becomes wrong. And so whether you're pursuing hedonism or you're pursuing something that's otherwise very healthy, like working out or like, you know, building businesses, it's still overall a corrupted orientation for what you were made for, which is to be with God, dude. That's what that's what all of us are made for at the end of the day. That's what Art Chat is made for. That's what you watching right now, that's what you're made for, dude. You're made to be with God. And those things, you know, maybe you are already Catholic and, you know, man, I should make an entire video on this, but being real for a moment, because I know we see it a lot online. I think a lot of people convert and they instantly think that, you know, when we talk about what it's like to walk with God or whatever, that their life is just instantly going to be perfect. And then when it's not, they almost ask, you know, did God abandon me? Is Catholicism the true path? Did I get it right? Did I do it wrong? Does God hate me? I'm here to tell you that if you think that you're going to convert and you're going to, you know, go to that Easter vigil or you're going to go to that confirmation mass And the moment the waters of baptism, the moment the chrism oil runs off your head, you're going to be free from flaws, free from sadness, free from all pain. I'm here to tell you that's not true. It's a struggle. And I think a lot of people think that, when we talk about the meaning that God gives your life, that it's almost instantly acquired. It's instant gratification. Oh, if you just instantly convert tomorrow and you buy all these books that I recommend you and you watch the cool based tradcast or whatever, your life is going to be perfect. And then when it's not, you're disappointed, you're sad, you're broken, and you ask, is this all a lie? I'm here to tell you that it's not. God is no lie. God isn't a lie, and pursuing God isn't a lie. He is the ultimate truth. But until you reach heaven, this life is going to be hard. If anyone tells you that your life becomes easier by becoming Catholic, or that your life will be free from pain, or that everything will be on easy street forever, I'm sure their heart is completely in the right place. They are completely mistaken. If you want to share and partake in the resurrection, you must be a part of the crucifixion. And this life is that crucifixion. This life that we live, it's that crucifixion. And the reason I bring this up is because, I talk to a lot of people all the time that, they convert, they have kind of the convert zeal leading up to their confirmation. Confirmation happens, they still got that zeal, and then the honeymoon phase starts to wane off, and they say, Connor, I'm still struggling with like all these sins. I'm still, finding it hard to do the things that I need to do. I'm still tempted all the time. I'm still struggling with doubt. I'm still struggling with all these things that are afflicting me. Did I do everything wrong? Someone actually just took the words out of my mouth. Captain in chat. Being Catholic is hard because you become aware. I will be honest with you guys. My life was very, 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 very easy before I converted. It was extremely easy. I didn't have to answer to anybody but myself. I was my beginning, my middle, my end. When I lived my life that way, even though I believed in God and even though I said I was an Anglican and I was Christian, functionally I was my own God. I could interpret the Bible the way I wanted to interpret it. If I sinned, that's fine. I feel maybe kind of bad for it, but it's not a big deal. God loves me. And I became an island. I was miserable every step of the way. I was completely miserable. And I wasn't miserable because I was just afflicted with hardships or that I was a sinner or what have you. There was that misery there. But I was miserable because I realized I really had no meaning. I think intuitively, all of us realize when we're in that position before we become Catholic, there really is no meaning to our lives, even if we self-identify as Christian. In that existence, you answer to yourself. You are your own God. You make your own religion. Even if you have the Bible, even if you have some ecclesial community you answer to or whatever, or you're like, I talk with my pastor or something like that, that's all fine and well. You are not a part of Christ's body. You're not a part of his mystical body. And so you do not experience the walk to Golgotha and the resurrection after that he experiences. And so because of that, your life is very, very, very easy. And it's completely meaningless. And you still feel this ache in your heart. You still feel this longing in your heart, and you can't quite express what it is. Oh, maybe Pastor Bobby's preaching kind of sucks. Maybe I got to go to a new Protestant church, one that's more based. This Orthodox parish, well, it's Armenian Orthodox, and I should really be going to a Russian Orthodox because they're the base trad guys, right? I need to be go and hang out where the base trad guys are. And you keep doing this and doing this and doing this and doing this, and yet you just at the end of the day still feel empty. Your life might be very easy, but it's meaningless. And when I became Catholic, it was very difficult for me to take a good long look at myself and realize, wow, I'm not actually the good person that I thought I was. I'm not a good person. I'm a broken sinner. And yet God loves me. And God loved me enough to call me out of that so that I could be with him. I want you guys to realize that for a moment. This world is kind of like an ocean, right? It's actually like the Great Flood that Noah lived in. And when the flood came, everything was washed away. Most of us, our entire lives, I talk about the analogy of the cave that Plato gives all the time, right? Where you're living in the cave and you're watching the shadows on the wall and you're entertained by the shadows. But in many ways, I think the flood is a better analogy. Your head is below the water and you're drowning. You don't realize that you're drowning at all. That's the crazy part about it. Your head is below the water, but you don't realize you're drowning because it's dark down there. There's no light. And yet, when you become Catholic, God loved you so much that, like Peter walking on the water, saying, "Lord, I'm drowning." He grabs your arm and he pulls you out and he pulls you onto the ark and says, "You have so little faith. I've always got you." I just said that being Catholic is not easy. Anyone who tells you that it is, I'm sure, very well intentioned and says it with nothing but goodness in their heart. But that's a lie. It's not easy to be Catholic. It's very, very hard, actually. And I'm not good at it. And I know many of you don't feel good at it either. But Catholicism is something more than easy. It's true. And even sometimes when it's hard to live truth, even when sometimes seeing that sun for the first time hurts our eyes, we're healed by its rays. We're enlivened by it. We're given a new breath and a new spirit and a new life we never thought we could have. And it's hard walking that path. But Jesus is with you the full way. All of these people that Art Chad's covering, it's like they think that they have the path. They think that they have the way. They think, Lao Tzu called it the Tao, right? The way. They think that they have the way. But the only way is to the cross. And the promise that the cross holds after is the resurrection. And it is a painful, agonizing walk. But the glory thereafter, and the light thereafter, and the love thereafter, not only will make you realize that it was all worth it, but it will wipe away every tear. It'll carry away every sorrow, and it will carry away every single pain. And you will be reconciled to something greater than you could have ever imagined. And that's what it means to be Christian. And so we'll keep watching, keep going through the archetypes. But that's fundamentally the problem here, is that they just keep walking a path that only leads uphill and downhill. The boulder. They will keep pushing the boulder until they are able to understand that the only hill that they can walk up that has an end is Golgotha. But that end promises you everything. The stone cannot. It's only a rock. But that cross, that has everything. And that's what's meaningful. Hamilton Network said something very important in chat. He says, I thought I was a good Christian until I read about the saints. Then it made me realize how much of a piece of crap I am. Also, he is one of my great friends, so I'm going to mod him. Here's the thing, man. Nobody who is ever a saint thought that they were a good guy. It's kind of funny because it's like, you almost ask yourself this question. It's like, when they were alive, did they know that they were saints? Did St. Augustine know that he was a saint? Did St. Cyprian or Cornelius or Catherine or Therese, did they know that they were saints? And the answer is no. All of them thought that they were the most little insignificant sinners of all. These doctors of the church, these princes of the church, these women whose souls magnified the Lord, these men who burned with a heart and ardor for God. Every single one of them thought that they were worthless pieces of crap. And many of them, we tend to forget, lived pretty horrible lives. They lived pretty awful lives. I've told his story before. His icon's on my wall. And he is a saint that I will always, for the rest of my life, really cherish his story. Because it makes me realize that it's never too late. But St. Andrew Wooters, man. You know, St. Andrew Wooters gambled, drank, fornicated so much as a priest, mind you, not as even a lay person, but as a priest, fornicated so much that he fostered a lot of illegitimate children outside of marriage, was laicized, and so he lived in shame. And to think, you know, he lived in a Catholic society. What do you think the reaction was of a laicized priest? Do you think he was met with you know, praises and everyone thought he was great? No. To be laicized as a priest meant you had the scarlet letter, dude. You had the scarlet letter. That means you failed. That means you messed up bad. You're not a priest anymore, dude. You must have really have done something to mess up. So here you have this man who, by all intensive purposes, lives his life in reprobation. It's almost like he is speed running his way to hell. It's like he is just speed running his path to hell. He's done pretty much all the sins. And he's denigrated one of the holiest, not one of the holiest office on earth, the priesthood. And one day he's walking along a trail, some road in the Netherlands, right? And a group of Calvinists happen upon him. Well, based on his clothing, they could tell that he was a priest, or at least had been. So they say, very plainly, either you're going to deny the Pope and proclaim yourself to be free of Catholicism, free of the Catholic Church, or we'll kill you. we've made a real simple decision for you. You can either die or say that you're Catholic. And this man who has lived his entire life in sin, his entire life in reprobation, his entire life doing everything that easily someone could look at his life and say, you're not a Christian, dude. You're not a real Christian. You suck. You're awful. You're terrible. You're worse than Judas. I can only think of St. Andrew looking up at them with sullen eyes. Eyes that had history, had seen a lot and done a lot. And in that moment, he says, adulterer I was, heretic never. And for that, they hung him. And he died. Yet this man would go on to be canonized by Blessed Pius IX and be regarded in history as one of the greatest examples of repentance and sainthood that one could ever achieve. Living an entirely sinful life away from God. Accumulating and doing every single sin known to man. Living in such a way that it would make devils seem like angels. And yet when it counted most, when he had to give account for Christ, he answered that call. I will say this to you all, and I never want you to forget this. If you for the rest of your life, love and believe in Jesus Christ and what he taught, he will forgive you and he will save you. I don't mean that as the sin of presumption, because what that means is that if you believe, you will go to confession, you will confess your sins, you will ask for the grace of his pardon. But I promise you with all of my heart and with every fiber of my being, that if you love God, and if you truly want to be with him in heaven, and you stake your entire life on what he teaches and who he is, you will go to heaven. You will be with him in paradise. I stake everything that I am on that claim. At the risk of destroying all of my credibility, I stake everything that I believe and am on that claim. God does love you. And no matter what you've done in this life or what you will do or the mistakes that you will make, you can always come back to him. And so for Hamilton, yeah, you might feel like a piece of crap, man. I guarantee that probably your sins are not worse than mine. But God loves you and God loves me. And despite everything that we do, and despite the ways that we have turned on him and turned against him, he will always forgive you if you want to be forgiven. Because at his core, he loves you. And nothing that you could ever do to him would make him love you any less. You know, it's funny, it's like, and I don't mean to keep going on. I know we need to get on with a video. I love going on these monologues, of course, right? I can be a little bit of a yapper, you know. I'm called sappy, but I can also be yappy sometimes. But the moment of the cross, the moment of the crucifixion, you have to understand that Jesus suffered for every sin that was ever committed, every sin that was being committed, right there as crowds lauded and celebrated him dying. And he suffered for every sin that would be committed. The cross is the axiom of all of human history. No, scratch that, all of history. From the creation of our universe to its end, the cross stands at the center point and the axiom of all of that history. And so that means that if Jesus suffered for every sin that would ever be committed, he knew the ways that you would betray him. He knew the ways that you and I would fail to live up to him and live up to his word. And yet he still willingly allowed himself to be humiliated and shamed upon that cross for our sake and to die on that cross for our sake. And so I'm serious, man. It does not matter what sin that you committed. Sin is serious. I'm not saying that sin doesn't matter. It does. But no matter what sin that you have ever committed, God can and will forgive you if you just let him forgive you. I remember Father Herbert McCabe. I think I referenced this last time, but he had this very beautiful quote that I've thought about a lot. You know, confession isn't even necessarily asking God for forgiveness. It's rather acknowledging that we've already been forgiven. It's allowing us to experience the forgiveness that he has already given us, with his precious blood being shed upon the cross. And so it's important to remember that when you go to confession. God is not an angry bearded man in the sky with a lightning bolt at the hilt ready to strike you down. You know, you're going to pull up to church and then, 5 minutes later, you're going to be a toaster strudel, right? You're going to be a Pop-Tart just freshly out of the toaster. No, it's not who God is. God is a loving, tender Father. He's already given you his forgiveness, but you have to acknowledge that forgiveness that he's given you, and you have to let it heal your life. And that's what it means to be forgiven. W Stream, love you, Pinesap. Never felt closer to Christ till I came across your streams. I appreciate that, Dylan. That means a lot to me, man. You're delivering great. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Seeming exists is because no one talks to each other anymore. The person beside you at the crosswalk waiting to cross the street with you might as well be an NPC if you don't interact with them. And that's on you, not on them. Everyone you see has a rich life, full of narratives, stories, myths, lessons. It unfolds in front of them. It's always changing. Everybody you see is just as interesting and as deep as you are. But let's be honest, some people just aren't real. I don't know what it is. You talk to some people and they just have nothing to say. They have no hobbies. They don't do anything interesting. 10 years of screen time and risk aversion really destroys the human soul. People probably think you're an NPC and you don't even know it. And the only way to combat this is just be extremely outspoken all the time, even if you're wrong. Just take up space. It's better to be a lunatic than to be forgettable. Train wreck. Okay, this person is sort of like the NPC and
transphobia, dude, that's crazy. But anyhow, I don't really like the term NPC. I use the joking terms, Goyim, NPC, and to a certain extent, it's like, yes, I think you can act or even be like that archetype, not in terms of your nature, but just the actions that you're taking on. It's like you can choose to be an NPC. You can literally choose to act like a video game character and live like a video game character. Going to work day in, day out, watching the same sports ball game, never having any deeper thought or what have you. But here's the thing. What we get wrong about saying that someone's an NPC is that they weren't made for that. And they weren't made to be that. And even your most, look, we've all worked office jobs. We all have that boring coworker who, his name's like, Bob or something, it's like some kind of like generic name. And, he's probably like in his 30s to 40s, no real interests, maybe married, maybe not. And it's not that we hate Bob as an archetype, right? But he just doesn't particularly interest us. The thing about it is that even as boring as this, Bob the Builder said, "Hey, my name is Bob." Well, Bob the Builder, you're not uninteresting. I love you, bro. You're the life of the party, actually. But even as boring as that coworker may seem, that person that you interact with may seem, there's still a light and a life to him. There's still a garden that the Lord has planted inside his soul. And maybe that garden hasn't been tilled. Maybe those flowers, those beautiful plants haven't been seeded, but it's there. That soil that God put there is always there, and it can never be destroyed. Even in the most corrupt, I'm talking like G.G. Allen levels of evil, right? Like the most corrupt, depraved individual you can think of. That garden is still there. That garden of the soul. And when we use terms like NPC or, and to a certain extent, it's like we can still use that as an archetype. But when we just say that someone's an NPC and we reduce who they are and the totality of who they are, who God made them to be, to this atomized little soundbite, it's like we turn our back on that garden. What could bloom into a rich rose or beautiful daffodil, suddenly we show a level of cold, sort of almost hatred towards, right? A sort of coldness towards, a coldness of the soul. And as we know, it's like nobody can cultivate a beautiful garden in the cold. Plants don't grow during the winter, right? And so if we are cold to that person, we reduce that person. And we say, you're always going to be that way. And there's never going to be a beautiful thought in your head. And there's never going to be anything that magnifies your soul for the Lord. But they were made for that. And you were made for that too. I mean, I see people all the time, sometimes online, they're like, I'm boring. It's like, dude, shut up. You're not boring. I'm gonna big brother you. I'm your big brother, and I'm putting you in a proverbial headlock right now. I'm putting you in a figurative headlock right now, and I'm saying, shut up. You're not boring. You are not boring. You were made to be boring, man. You were made special by God. I mean, honestly, it's so silly, but it's like, even when you see that image from VeggieTales, God made you special, that is actually real, though. Every human being is special. We heard the goat say, every human being has something of value to offer, especially, but what was funny about that is, like, even though, there's maybe a little bit of like trolling there with, who was then mentioned, that is true. Every human being does have something of value to offer. And, the NPC is just an easy mental categorization we've used in the mind. But it's not who people are. Maybe people seem boring because they keep things to themselves, or they're quiet, or they're more introspective. I've been surprised sometimes at the level of introspection that people had that I otherwise wrote them off because they didn't say a whole lot. I was like, oh, this person probably doesn't have like anything interesting to say, so they must not be interesting, right? They must not be interesting. They must just be like completely boring or whatever. And then they would give me a present. They would leave me a message. They would make some incisive remark. And I just sat there being almost in awe and thinking to myself, how dare I reduce this person and just say, oh, they're this little thing, this little item, when they've just disproven me right there, when I've just seen God work through their heart. I think that's something of very pertinent value. A lot more of us need to reflect on.
the cope lord, but worse in every way. This person spends most of their time thinking about their identity and their feelings. They really think life is about being happy as much as possible. They keep trying to define themselves with interests, subcultures, hair colors. But here's the issue with the ego. It's a centerless pit. You can chase your own identity for...
Okay, wait. Hold on. Not that girl.
Hair colors. But here's the issue.
I think in the background we found evil Kai clips, bro. I'm not talking on Kai, but like that like femboy or whatever in the back, it's evil Kai clips, dude. It's Kai clips it's Kai clips bizarro alter ego. It's what's Kai backwards? Iac? It's Iac clips, bro. Iac clips is in the background of this video right now. That's crazy. We need to give Kai the sword of Joseph Smith. We need to give him the katana of Joseph Smith, and he needs to smite his evil duo, Iac clips, bro. If he doesn't destroy Iac clips will take over. It's a fight between good and evil, and Kai is the man in the white hat right now. He needs to fight Nega Kai. He needs to fight Dark Kai, or else Iac clips is gonna finally take over, dude. And I don't want to be there for when he does.
With the ego. It's a centerless pit. You can chase your own identity forever and never figure it out. Maybe if you were a character in a book or a movie, you could be quantified. That's why people care so much about identity now. We take in so much fictional media that we think everyone is easily definable. We think everyone has a concrete identity, and there's an issue with us that we don't have a concrete identity. You can't be defined. You're not a character. You're stuck in time. If you're worried about your identity, if you're worried about figuring out who you are to other people, here's my advice to you. Just be useful. No one's coming to save you. No one cares about the music you like, or if you're happy or not. No one gives a f***. Just be useful to other people, or at the very least, don't get in their way. Now, the only thing that could fix this person would be like a world war. That would fix a lot of things, actually. Okay, our next archetype stays with a trend of NPC type people. Fried. This person is done. This person is cooked. There's no saving them. They just vape, scroll on their phone, no attention span, no social skills. This person is a victim. Personal agency can only get you so far. But when someone is born and raised in the goo, can you blame them for not knowing they're covered in slime? Think about that. Girl boss. I hate cliches and I don't want to give credence to boomer memes, but this is just a type of person that has never existed before. The girl boss is like the hustler, but more aesthetic. Green juice in the Stanley Cup, rubbing the foie gras feng shui thing on their face to get the puffiness away, buying lots of stuff and being sad, like the hustler. The girl boss had the reward center hijacked by the desire to produce capital, and they will forego everything human to do so. No kids, no man. You know, $300K a year in a mid-floor condo sounds nice, until you get diagnosed with chronic illness in your mid-50s, and there's no one around to comfort you as the curtain slowly closes on your life. But hey girls, at least you drove a BMW and owned a funny dog. Femcel, what the
That's so real. That's so real. You know how you fix that, though? That's how you fix that. Hey, you're not going to make those spreadsheets. You're not going to make those spreadsheets anymore. You're going to make me a turkey sandwich. Extra mayo. No, I'm just kidding. I'm playing. I mean, the girl boss really is kind of created from a society that has like essentially forgotten the natural like role of men in leading society, and so it's like women are kind of now aimless in identifying like what their real purpose is, and what is traditionally the purpose of a man and a woman, which I think, you know, a lot of guys, you know, because feminism isn't directed towards us, we very easily rediscovered that it's like our purpose is to be like a father and a husband, but I don't mean that like in a gay wife guy kind of way. I just mean like in a way of like, you know, the two become one flesh and create new life as a result, right? We've realized that that's our purpose, but I think for women, it's like they see motherhood or being a wife as like these shackles, right? These shackles that just bind them. It's binding them from doing what? Making spreadsheets and like buying expensive cars. I mean, that's a completely materialist existence, but really what the girl boss taps into is it's sort of the worst quality of sort of the female ego and its vanity, right? It's vanity. Vanity is one of the worst qualities of the female ego, like how men, you know, some of men's worst qualities. I mean, because really what it is it goes back to the garden. You know, Adam his mistake was that he left Eve to be tempted. He was a coward in the garden. And so he left Eve vulnerable. And when Eve was vulnerable, her vanity was appealed to. You know, eat this and you will become like God. And in that way, Eve wanted to usurp the position, the emptiness that was left by Adam. That's what the girl boss wants. That's ultimately what the girl boss wants. She wants to usurp the position that men otherwise had. And it's not that men become like Patrick Bateman, American Psycho, like womanizers who eat, sushi and wear designer clothing every single day. That's not what I'm talking about. It's that, men become providers and protectors and world builders. And I heard someone put this very eloquently, but, women come to beautify the world that men build. That's why women are homemakers. It's like, the man may build a house, but the woman kind of adds the heart to it, the hearth, so to speak. The man makes the physical structure. He builds the physical structure, and the woman creates a sort of, is the hearth, the fire, the heart of that house. And because of that, it really sort of, I would say, like, enlivens both of their lives. But because there has been this gap of men have just been so beaten down by feminism that now there's this like emptiness, these women, these girl bosses feel like they need to step into that emptiness. But ironically, that is a mold that they were never sort of made to fill, right? That was a mold that they were never made to fill. And so their stomach may be full of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, but their heart is empty of God. Their stomach may be full of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, but their heart is empty of God. And that's why these women feel depressed and they get cats and they blame like their parents or society for all their problems. But it's like really their problem is that they aren't living out the beautiful life that God made for them. Gets back to the problem we identified earlier, It's the problem with all these archetypes. It's a loss of meaning.
Pickup artists and What do pickup artists and femcells have in common? Both communities were started in Toronto, the greatest city on earth. That's true, actually. I looked that up. Toronto is like if elf bars were a city. Femcells, like the girl boss, shouldn't exist. The ego is driven by status and anger. This is because both of these things give you identity. Like I mentioned, making money, acquiring status, that's the default class you're born with. But anger is different. Humans like anger because it's easier to define yourself with what you're not rather than what you are. It's easier to define yourself with what you're a victim of rather than what you're grateful for. This is why the ranks of the ideologies on the right and the left are filled with so many lost people. If you've never had concrete purpose in life, some retarded ideology like femcell sounds really attractive to you. And this brings us to our last archetype. Guys, I want to...
Femcells just also don't exist because, being a female incel, it's like a female incel will still have hundreds of guys that are like willing to date her or marry her, or even at the very least show her the time of day, right? There are guys, I'll put it to you this way. There's guys that look almost like Clav, right? Like very good looking guys, very sharp looking, takes care of themselves or whatever, who will never be given the time of day. Who have the money, the status, the jawline, the looks, physiognomy, everything. And they will never be given the time of day. And then there's quote unquote femcell women that they've got like hundreds of suitors lined up, just ready to marry them. It's completely stupid. It totally like truncates the problem that each sex faces, right? Like, there will always be guys willing to pay one of these girls attention. But for guys, right, again, there's dudes who look like Clav or whatever, guys who almost look like male models, and there will be women that will never pay them the time of day. It's just unbelievable.
On a lighter note, someone we can all make fun of together. 90 IQ Patrick Bateman. This is the type of person that tells you up front they're a psychopath because they like cheated on their partner in high school. This is the person openly reading 48 Laws of Power on the subway. You can watch this person try and manipulate you in real time. This person's body language is so sloppy and calculated. It's like they watched a video on how to be confident 15 minutes ago and now they're trying it out on you. Life is now all about schemes and hacks. No one wants to admit that life is hard and tedious. They'd rather think that they're one life hack away from figuring everything out and becoming God. This is what society asks of us now. There's no time for mistakes. You didn't think the right thought at the right time. Now you're f***ed, you idiot. You lost it. You lost the game. You lost life. Sorry, no second try, no round two, it's over. You're a loser forever. Some 19-year-old is gonna make $1 million off coin and steal your girlfriend. 2023. Now, in conclusion, what do all these archetypes have in common? They're all yearning, searching, craving, yearning for comfort, yearning for purpose, yearning for stability. Everything feels broken and boring. Society is getting tired, and Gen Z is just so ready to move on to the next step. But we just don't know how. Money, God, power, what is life about? What is the answer? Maybe, just maybe, life is about staying in decent shape, staying healthy, having fun with your friends, picking up a useful trade that fulfills you, having 2 to 5 children, a loving partner. Nah. Life is definitely about trad cat hypercapitalism. I love Gen Z. We're the greatest generation.
So that end there, and then I think I'll probably end the stream here because I do need to go eat dinner, but that end there kind of signifies initially like why my post about Archad was kind of pointed against him a little bit. And I don't say this with attacking him, but this is where my critique comes in. This entire video, he builds up a really good, almost I'd say like diagnosis of Gen Z's problem, which is all of these people are yearning. All of these people are searching. All of these people are trying to find the answer. Right? Every single one's trying to find the answer. And their whole problem is that they can't find the answer. And so they adopt these archetypes, but these archetypes still fail to sort of honestly like get to the root of the heart of the problem that they're experiencing. It's not able to address why their heart is yearning in the first place, right? And he identifies that very well. But at the end, and this is kind of similar to I think this type of philosophy that Archad has adopted. It just becomes this kind of like generic, almost like, and I'm not using liberal in a pejorative sense. I'm using it in the very like classical sense of the word, like civic virtue. Like there are certain things that our society has to have in order to like properly function. Like citizens need to have some kind of religiosity. Families need to be relatively stable. You can't have high levels of like divorce and promiscuity. Like even many liberal people can kind of identify that, right? But that's the exact problem. It's putting a Band-Aid on everything. It's putting a Band-Aid on a deeper problem, which is people don't feel like they have meaning, ironically, because they don't have God. And he kind of blew past it and he tried to make it like, oh, is it God? Is it money? No, it's just God. That is all it is. Money will be lost. You will lose money. Even if you make millions, you cannot take it to the grave with you. You will die one day and you will not be able to take those millions with you. Right? Power. How many men have statues built of them and great coliseums and all these monuments? And down through the ages, people forget who they are. I doubt many Gen Z people know even who Caesar is. I'm going to be real. This guy who conquered most of the known world, even Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great basically conquered the entire world at that time, the entire civilized world. I doubt there's any like Gen Alpha, Gen Z kid who can really name who he is. This great conqueror. Do you want to be a memory in the mind of man? Or do you want to be in eternity with God? That's the question all of us have to ask ourselves. That's the real yearning of our heart. Having a good job and having a good relationship and all that stuff and working out and making a decent amount of money, those are all very important. Right? But if you remember a chart like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those are the top needs, right? Okay, I need a warm, comfortable house to live in, need plenty of good food in the fridge, need a, beautiful wife who loves me, great children, all that stuff. That's great. But your root need, what you need the most is God. When you have God, like, you might not have those other things. St. Polycarp, if I remember correctly, I believe he died by being burned alive. St. Ignatius was torn apart by lions, right? Life is very hard for the saint. It's not easy. Talked earlier, I'm not saying it's easy at all. It's not. If any of these people, these archetypes we spoke of, want what is easy, Catholicism isn't for you, man. And I don't say that with any nastiness. I say that with, that isn't what you're going to find in God. But what you will find in God is truth. And that is the only thing that will answer the yearning of your heart. I want our Chad to find God. And I don't say I want him to find God like the insult, like, find God, right? But I want him to know and love God because God knows and loves him. He may very well identify and diagnose like these problems with Gen Z and stuff like that. I think he's very good at that. But as long as he doesn't reach the natural conclusion, as long as he doesn't reach what we were all made for, it's just going to be Sisyphus rolling the boulder up. And so I hope and I pray with all my heart that our Chad comes to know and love God, because that's what he was made for, and that's what all of us were made for. But needless to say, my friends, it has been a good stream. It is 10 here, so I gotta log off, gotta get on with dinner and stuff like that. But as usual, it's been great talking to all of you. I love you guys very much. God bless every single one of you. Thank you for spending this time with me, and be expecting more content, man. We're getting at it.